right, so welcome to Roots Reality Experiences. Today I'm joined by Brandon Lloyd, who is a former All-Pro wide receiver of the National Football League and founder of a private music publishing entity. In addition, Brandon has done work in aerospace and medical technology sales, worked with the nonprofits Blessings in a Backpack and the Denver Dream Center, and currently serves as a business partnerships and apprenticeship ambassador at CareerWise Colorado, which is a registered youth apprenticeship nonprofit. So Brandon, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Ben.
So just starting off, do you remember the first sport that you ever played?
Organized sport?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, flag football.
Flag football. How old were you when you first started playing?
Third grade. In
Third grade, okay.
Blue Springs Football League. You know, it started in with flag, which is the introduction into the sport of football, but it was flag football in Blue Springs, Missouri.
Okay. And so before that, did you ever play like any like t-ball or soccer, or was football the first?
You know, when I was younger, you know, I was diagnosed with, you know, attention deficit disorder, and you know, I was a pretty rambunctious kid. I couldn't sit still. You know, I have trouble reading because I couldn't sit still long enough.
Right. Okay. Sure.
And you know, so I was getting the Ritalin, and my mother didn't like how it was changing my mood.
Oh, okay.
And so she took me off of it. So I had to navigate the world and figure out how I was going to interact with the world without that pharmaceutical assistance.
Sure.
And my dad introduced me to football.
Oh, okay.
So he took me to the library, and we got Buddy Ryan. I don't know if you remember him. He's an old school football coach. He got me the Buddy Ryan book and the companion VHS tape.
Okay.
And I got another VHS tape, and it was just about the positions of football, the stances, the rules. And that's when I fell in love with football. I'd sit there and looked at that VHS, and I just could not believe it. I was just so excited to put on a helmet, to wear the pads, the cleats, the be the kicker. I wanted to be the kicker, the punter, the quarterback.
Do everything.
I wanted to do everything. So, you know, when I was introduced to football, you know, I fell in love. It was immediate love at first sight.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, were you, like, as soon as you started, did you start dreaming about becoming a professional football player, or was that later on?
You know, I studied professional athletes because, you know, my parents, you know, blessed me with a Sports Illustrated subscription. And so I read a lot about sports and professional athletes. And particularly, it was all the sports, but particularly it was Deion Sanders who really caught my eye when I was younger. And but I'd say prior to that, it was the Joe Montana, Jerry Rice connection. I really enjoyed Warren Moon and Randall Cunningham. I enjoyed James Reed and Jim Kelly connection. So and then as far as the defenses, obviously it was just, you know, watching football in the late 80s and 90s was just, it was like the glory days of NFL sports. But beyond that, we watched everything. It was motorsports, tennis, the Olympics. I'd be glued to the TV at all hours of the day watching the Olympics as a youth. I really loved the Olympics, but you know, anything sports related, I was obsessed with it as a youth.
Yes. That kind of rings a bell with me, because I remember, like, me and my brother growing up, my dad was always super obsessed with sports, and so me and my brother got indoctrinated pretty quickly that we would be sports fans and just watch everything, basically, you know, just go as many games as we can and collect like sports cards. I don't know if you ever did that, but that was a big thing to do. So
what was your favorite sports card?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So I was collecting hockey cards, basketball cards, football cards, and baseball cards mostly.
There might be like the Gretzky, the Lemieux.
Yeah, that's right. Gretzky cards. My brother was a big Gretzky fan. My favorite hockey player was Paul Kariya, who played for the Anaheim Ducks for a number of years. And I enjoyed just collecting all these cards, and just whenever I could save up money, I would go and try to buy a new pack of cards and like have trades with my brother and stuff. And so it was just kind of a fun thing to do.
Now, have you kept your cards, and have you, with the rise in cards, are you going back and revisiting the cards you have and seeing the value?
To a certain extent, I mean, yeah, I have all the cards. I've never gotten rid of any of the cards I have. I'm sure I have a few cards of you actually, but it's actually, I have a funny story about that too, because so I've been keeping all my cards, and I just have boxes of sports cards. But I also would collect like pennants, like different team pennants from all the different sports leagues, and so I would go, because the Kansas City Chiefs are my local team. Whenever we could, my dad had a thing at work where they would be able to, everyone would chip in to get season tickets, and split the season tickets. So we'd go to a couple games every year for a little while growing up. And whenever I'd go to games, we would go super early, and I would go and try to get autographs. And I remember, I was thinking the Broncos had come to Kansas City, and I actually sort of met you and got your autograph at a game actually once. So
awesome.
So it's kind of funny now that, yeah, that's right, full circle now talking. So
yeah, fun.
But so that was always just kind of a fun thing for me. It's always cool to be able to just collect sports memorabilia and sports things. It's a cool thing to do. So.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, my favorite cards were, you remember back in the 80s how popular Canseco and Bonds Mark McGuire, and now all those cards are worth $3, $2, $1.
Right. Yeah.
I thought they were going to be huge. I had the Bobby Bonilla, the Barry Bonds, and it's all those guys just went down in horrible fashion. Obviously the Michael Jordan cards, the Bo Jackson cards. I'm just surprised that collecting those cards are just how they just did not maintain the value that I thought that they were going to maintain when I originally had them, and how special they were to me when I first had them. And now I'm hearing all these card booms, and people's oh, just a random card I had just laying around, and now it's worth $1 million. And
that's right. If
maybe
you have
I had poor taste in baseball players when I was young.
I mean, it's some of the sales that you see for cards are just incredible, millions of dollars and usually they're some rare rookie card of I know a Tom Brady rookie card and a Gretzky rookie card sold for millions recently. I don't think I ever got too many cards that were that valuable. Those are hard to find. You have to be one of those super collectors, I think, to get those. But
I got some good Shaquille O'Neal cards.
Okay,
And at the time, I thought they were going to be good. Obviously, he had an amazing Hall of Fame career, and but the cards didn't really materialize into much.
I think any cards I have would probably be worth I don't know, $20, $50 max or something. None of the cards I got were the super rare ones. So, but just a fun hobby to have, and a great way to get to know the different players and really study the game by looking at the stats on the back of a card or something. So that's always a cool thing to do.
Oh yeah, I would sit in front of the football games with my cards.
Yeah.
Or sit in front of the baseball games with my card book out.
Yeah.
And those are fond memories.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, the card book thing. I totally relate to that, because I would have people organized by team, and if they got traded, then I would move them to a different part of the book. Oh, you're on this team now.
So good.
I think actually probably the funniest thing was because my brother, his favorite sport was hockey. I was kind of mixed in with all the sports I kind of liked equally. At different times, I might, sort of focus on one more than the other. But he would have like an all-star collection. He would basically create his own all-star list of players based on their stats and like induct them into his all-star collection. And so he'd like, okay, this person's had like 5 straight good years. He's now one of my all-stars, and he would put them in a special section of and so I would try to copy him and also create my own all-star lists and stuff. But
so who's doing better in fantasy now?
Oh, is it fantasy? Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. I actually I have a fantasy football league, and have a group of guys that's been in it for like we've been going for 10 years now.
Is your brother in this league?
He's in the league, and so it's a big rivalry. We do not like each other much when we play. That's right. But yeah, I've actually won the championship back-to-back years now, so I'm doing pretty well. But
so did that experience with the cards in the past, is that paying forward to your fantasy?
I think so. I think so. Yeah, I think all the studying of the statistics for players helps me understand when it comes to fantasy football. I'm more familiar, I think, with breaking down which players to have on my team. But I think it must be that, because I don't know what else would allow me to win two in a row. So it's. Are you in a fantasy football league?
I'm not.
Okay.
I can't keep up with it.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of managing to do.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this is a kind of funny question. When you were playing in the NFL, did you know guys who were on your team that were in a fantasy football team?
Yeah. Notoriously, Chris Cooley, when I was on the Washington football team, was notoriously in fantasy sports.
Yeah.
And this was 2006, so it was probably 3 years into.
Yeah.
The heightening of fantasy sports, and Chris was notoriously in fantasy sports. The other player was Champ Bailey.
Champ Bailey. Okay.
Oh, and he'd talk about it too. Oh yeah, he'd be like, I knew you were going to go off today. That's why I started you.
That's hilarious. Okay.
Those are 2 players.
Yeah.
Wildly famous players. Like,
definitely.
Champ's a Hall of Famer.
Right.
And Chris was just an absolutely amazing baller.
Oh yeah.
But 2 amazing players were.
That's funny. That's funny. And so I guess Champ Bailey had you on his team, and he's like telling you like, you better step it up today.
You know it.
That's funny. That's funny. Did Chris Cooley have himself on his fantasy team?
I don't recall. Recall.
I just wonder what that dynamic would be like.
Well, I'm sure he did. I mean, the play calling was so bad, the ball went to him every time. So he'd be foolish not to get himself.
Yeah.
Unless someone else got him before him.
Yeah, that's right. I picked him up. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. So when did you when did you start to really understand that you could go pro?
Right. So it started off right off the bat, in that Blue Springs Little League, the first kickoff I caught touchdown.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
The team went 3 and out, punt it. I took the punt, touchdown. And it was, and I was the smallest kid on the field.
Right.
And it was kind of like, oh, wow, I need to stay out of trouble so I can do this. Mm-hmm. So that was what my father introduced me to, was purpose. Football gave me purpose. Sports gave me purpose in life. And that was what was so profound about that introduction into football. Yeah. And thank the Lord that I gravitated towards it like I did.
Sure.
I recorded Deion Sanders games, and I started emulating how he played. Yeah. I read his autobiography and when I was in the 7th grade, and that in conjunction with reading Sports Illustrated, the rise and the fall of a lot of people, from the 80s, and a lot of success, that I was reading about. So I studied professional athletes for a long time.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
and then, I was just gifted with the ability to be able to see it on TV, but I was recording them. And that was what was different between me and the other students. So I was in a film study mind state early in my life. So I was recorded, and then I'd be replaying them. I would put it in slow-mo and adjust the tracking so that line would get out of the way. That fuzzy line that was going across. So it would get out of the way. And then I can see them doing the moves. And then I'd emulate them in practice or in the backyard. I would do those in games and the pickup football games. I was doing the Jerry Rice moves. I was doing the Deion Sanders moves. I was doing the Deion Sanders celebration. So it was even that part of the entertainment factor of being a professional athlete. That's what I was really studying also. So both of my parents are public educators. I'm the last of 7. There's all 7 of us went to college. Right. So that was important in our upbringing. So when I was picking going to college, because I was recruited by all of them, when it came down to it, by my senior year, I was a 7'3" high jumper. I was long jumping 25 feet.
Wow.
I was running 110 hurdles in 13.7, under 14 seconds. I was the 3rd highest high jumper in my class, and tied for 4th in long jump. So it was, I was being recruited nationwide, from the Ivy League schools to West Point. My father thought I needed discipline, so he was like, I think you should really consider this West Point. I'm like, heck no.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
No. So when I was picking colleges, it was about the school that was going to give me a degree that was going to hold weight into the world with whatever I was wanting to do. And in conjunction with me studying those professional athletes, I was really drawn to Ahmad Rashad and the athlete television broadcasters and that form of entertainment, in the event that I didn't make it to the NFL, because there was only 1% of the athletes that, less than 1% come out of high school and make it pro. Right. So my parents were really adamant about me understanding that part of my journey. So football was just a means to an end. So in order for me to get a scholarship to go to a school, a dream school, I needed to play sports, and that's what I did. And so I got I only entertained schools with broadcast journalism programs. And that's how I landed at the University of Illinois, because they were number 3 in the nation in 1999 when I was coming out. And I chose Illinois. And that, as in the event that me not making it to the NFL happens, I said, hey, they found Jerry Rice in, Southern Mississippi Valley, HBCU. If I'm good enough, it'll happen. But if I'm not, at least I got a great education.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a huge thing that for anyone thinking about being a professional athlete going into college is, trying to understand you need to have a backup plan because it's so competitive. And a lot of people don't, I think, understand that, especially in high school.
And then a lot of the conversation right now is talking about paying the athletes, and that's not enough. That's not it.
Right.
That's not the answer either. Short-term, this short-term monetary gain is not the answer. It's the mentality. And we're really getting away from the point of higher education. Or those who are gifted enough to have that, or privileged enough to have that opportunity, and the space and the time to go to higher education. The point isn't to just all of a sudden try to start grabbing cash. And so one of my proposals for the NCAA is that it's like, how do you even decide who gets paid what? Because there are performers that are generating more revenue than others. So how do you decide?
Yeah.
You know, who, and so is it, you know, based off of like a letter winner, you know, you have to play X amount of snaps, then you get this slot of money, you know, you know, for a varsity letter, and obviously the highest slot of money would go to, you know, the quarterback or the, you know, the linebacker or the, you know, the safety or the wide receiver or the running back. But, you know, how does that get distributed across the team? You know, does the quarterback make the same as the, you know, the third string quarterback, the starting quarterback make the same as the third string safety? I think that the money should go into an escrow account, and it should include healthcare for 7 years post from their last snap. Which actually gives the student athletes the ability to find a secure job in which health benefits would set in to where they can start taking benefits from their job. But I would expand that not just for football athletes, because the same amount of physical stress and mental illness plagues gymnasts, wrestlers, baseball players, soccer players. So that goes across all sports. And that pool comes from the revenue from the NCAA. I think it's a poor idea to have student athletes come to college and then start soliciting themselves outside the ranks and start trying to get sponsorships. I think that is it's a distraction to the game. And I think that's going to provide some unfair advantages.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good points. I mean, it seems like trying to find the right balance for college athletes is really complex task. And there's a lot of issues trying to figure out, okay, how do we do this the right way? And I mean, especially just thinking about, you know, for all the college athletes that obviously don't go pro and don't have the opportunity for sponsorships and stuff. I think you raised a really good point about just, you know, healthcare, and, you know, all the injuries that are sustained, you know, especially for football players. I mean, you can have a guy that goes to college and just has any hopes of sort of a normal physical, you know, body being totally ruined for the rest of his life due to one injury in a game. And that's, you know, there's a lot of high risk there. I mean, there's so many injuries, and this is obviously injuries in all sorts of different college sports that can debilitate someone for the rest of their lives, if it's bad enough. So, you know, how to provide, I guess, the best future possible for people for all outcomes. That's such an important thing to think about going forward. Now, as I understand, when you were in college, you had to basically make a big choice because you decided to, I guess, leave early. And from what I've heard, that kind of was a little bit of a conflict with your mom about that.
That's right. Because it really went against their teachings, which was, you know, you go to school, you go there for 4 years, you get that paper, you know, that no one can take away from you. And then you march out into the world and you get a job and you start a family. And, you know, it was just a very traditional upbringing. And so, we read about professional athletes. We watched a lot of sports, but all of a sudden you're going to try to be one. It was probably a pretty twisted thought. At first, you know, but, you know, me doing all that studying and understanding, and I wouldn't say understanding, thinking I understood what it was like to be a professional athlete, going to the University of Illinois and then having the opportunity for players to go to the NFL and then remain in contact with me. And so that was also very helpful. My mentor when I was in the University of Illinois was a fifth-year senior. His name was Michael Dean. Okay. And he gave me his suits, you know, while he was on campus, you know, for award ceremony or for games, he would give me his old suits. He taught me how to dress. He's like, you know, if you think you want to be a professional athlete, you need to start now, and you need to start dressing nice and start, every game you need to wear a suit and tie. I was kind of like, oh, all right. So, it's like it took a mentor to help me understand what I needed to do to it, to connect those two ends. Because I was like, yeah, I want to be a professional athlete. I've read a lot about it. And then there are professional athletes. How do I connect that dot?
Right.
And it took that mentor to be able to do that for me. Having 2 back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons was helpful. But initially I didn't think that, it was a surprise to me. Coming off of my first year back from having a broken leg.
Yeah.
And being able to put up a 1,000-yard season. Ron Turner called me in his office and he said, he's like, I heard you have an agent. And I was like, hell no, I would never do that.
Mm-hmm.
That past story I told you about my parents. I was like,
yeah.
He knows my parents. Ron's known me since I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
Like, I would never do that.
Right.
I would never. Are you kidding me? I was like, all right. He's like, well, scouts have been here looking at you at practice. And the rumor was you had an agent. And I said, no. And that was only my second year on the football field.
Yeah.
But I left that office and I said, oh, damn. I'm good enough. I didn't, because that, the whole time I was like, dude, I'm just going to college. I'm doing my best. I'm representing the university. I'm running track. I'm playing on the football team. I'm holding up my obligation as a student athlete. I'm staying eligible. I thought I was a Huxtable. I was like, dude, I'm going to be here for 4 years. It's great. And then all of a sudden that happened. And then that dot got a little bit closer. And I said, oh, now I need to get serious. And so when I chose the University of Illinois, Ron Turner promised me that I would get an internship at a major news outlet.
Oh, okay.
By my junior year in the summertime.
Wow.
And so I wanted to, you remember The Score in Chicago?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So it's like that. It was like the first talk radio, sports talk.
Yeah.
That's what I had my eyes on. I was like, I want to work at The Score internship, my going into my junior year summer. Yeah. And so he said, all right, Chicago's a little too far because that time came up. He's like, so I'll send you to St. Louis to Fox Sportsnet St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
So I did my work study. I was cutting up film, football, sports reels, baseball. I was covering the Blues.
Oh, wow.
The Rams.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals. Dude, it was it was amazing.
Yeah, full spectrum there almost. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and this was Greatest Show on Turf, Marshall Falk, Court Rohner.
Yeah. That's great time. Yeah.
Pujols was in the.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. And so I was, and this was back I was doing beta tapes and slicing beta tapes and making reels. And I was out at a St. Louis Rams mini camp. Mm-hmm. And I got whistled over. It was Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, am I going to violate, any NCAA rules? And then the media was like, you have a media pass. my partner from Fox Sports was like, you got a media pass. You better go out there. And so I walk over there. They invite me to lunch. Oh, and so I go into lunch and I sit in the lunchroom and they close the dot.
Wow.
Here's how you're going to go pro. These are the drills you're going to need to do. Here's take 2 hula hoops, put them they're larger than hula hoops. They're like for doing drills, edge drills for D linemen. It's like take those enormous hoops, put them together, put 2 yards in between, and then do these figure eights. Get your balance right. Wow. You need to catch on the jugs machine. You need to be up to over 500 balls a day. You need to be in these drills you need to do drills before your workouts, do your scheduled workouts, and then do more drills afterwards. And so I took this plan back to Illinois, and all the receivers were like, all right. It's like, where'd you get this? And I was like, Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce told me to do this. And we fell in line, and we executed on that. And
wow,
that's what I brought back my final year at the University of Illinois. And that was like, that's when I knew that I could do it, make it to the NFL. It wasn't any time before that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talk about just a great experience too, though. And if you, in your position at the time, to be able to, hang out with a couple of wide receivers that are, stars in the league, and then, just learn from them and talk to them. I mean, that's great.
And they were my size. And I had been patterning my game after them. And it was just serendipitous. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what I was missing.
Right.
And then, and for them to say, oh yeah, we've been watching you.
Yeah.
Here's what you need to do. It was like, whoa.
Yeah.
The clouds opened up for me.
Yeah. That's a perfect situation. Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. I mean, talk about a great internship.
Right.
Like more athletes should try to replicate that, get internships around the sports world, broadcasting or whatever, because if you can meet pro athletes before going pro, that could be the extra push, to help get you there. So, wow.
That's good. Yeah, that's interesting.
That's cool. So when you first get to the NFL and you get drafted, how much pressure was there initially?
A lot of pressure. Yeah. Imagine the disappointment. I'm expected to be a first or second round pick, latest first day, third round pick. First day goes by, not selected, not even a call. Yeah. And so this whole idea that I've passed off to my parents that, I'm going to go to the NFL and I'm going to make it to the NFL. That was a rough start.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I say that the only person satisfied in the NFL draft is the first overall pick.
Yeah.
Everyone else thinks they should have been drafted higher.
Right.
And I threw a major temper tantrum after that first day went by. And then the second day went by, and it was, and it wasn't until, 11, 12 o'clock Central Time when I even got a call.
Wow. Yeah.
And Dennis Erickson called Mr. Donahue from the GM at the time. And they said that they were going to draft me to San Francisco. And so I came into that situation with a big chip on my shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I felt I had something to prove. And it was definitely a good thing for me, because I was always on edge. I didn't know if I was going to make the team. The second day picks are the guys who are going to get cut.
Yeah.
The first round picks, who they're keeping. I was going on the team with Terrell Owens as the starting receiver. Ty Streets was the ex receiver who I was backing up. Cedric Wilson, who was just a technician of a route runner who came out of the University of Tennessee. Just a real hardcore, like blue collar working guy. And then it was me. They brought in Arnez Battle from Notre Dame.
Okay.
And they were switching him to receiver, to be like that Antoine Randall.
Okay. Yeah.
Style player. And it was a lot of pressure, because just personally, I left school early.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Personally, it was like, all right, I made a decision, and now it seems like a crappy one, because I'm not the first round pick that they thought I was going to be. And then in my own head, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest fears for a lot of people when they're declaring for the draft, is probably not going as high as you hoped, then wondering, okay, should I have stayed an extra year or something?
Yeah, and I knew for me, staying the next year wasn't going to be feasible because I was already getting double teamed.
Okay.
I had Walter Young, Aaron Moorhead, and Greg Lewis, and they were just fantastic wide receivers, and I was getting double teamed, so it was tough for me to get 1,000 yards.
Right. So you're coming off your great year, and you just want to go make most of it. Yeah.
And then this was the first year without Kurt Kittner at the University of Illinois, and I still squeaked out 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
And it was difficult. It was difficult. And and then those 3 wide receivers were all leaving. Their eligibility was up. Mm-hmm. And based on the talent that I saw coming into the University of Illinois and the talent at the quarterback position, I was not coming back. So for me, it wasn't even a thought. So I was only going pro. And then so to try to get that past my parents, like, I'm not going to be able to be as good on the football field. But wait, you ain't there to play football anyway. No, you're right. But that wasn't going to go over well. So it was just like, you know what? I'm going pro. That's the decision. And so a large part of me was saying, I got to roll with it. Yeah. It don't matter where I go. I got to roll with this. And so getting into San Francisco, the other part of the pressure was the pressure the veterans put on the rookies.
Yeah. Yeah. What's that like?
And these were established veterans. T.O. was in his seventh or eighth year. Jeff Garcia, veteran. The lineman, Derek Deese, perennial all-pro left tackle. Ron Stone, perennial all-pro guard. Scott Gregg, Jeremy Newberry. These dudes were hardcore NFL veterans from the old era. Yeah. They were groomed from the 80s era. Yeah. And these were like 90s hardcore NFL pros. And Bryant Young was on that team. And so there was a lot of old traditions that needed to go away. Okay. Yeah. And then there was a lot of traditions that were unique to the NFL experience. And part of that was the pressure to perform. Mm-hmm. I finished my first season with, maybe, 300 yards or whatever. Right. A few spectacular plays. And then my second year, Jeremy Newberry says to me, Pro Bowl center, he's like, NFL wide receivers, guys can get that in one game. You know that, right? So you went a whole season and you got that. That's like a game and a half for most guys. Okay. Yeah. And this was my second year in the NFL, and they had traded away Terrell Owens. They had traded away Ty Streets, and now I'm starting receiver. So, it's like, so a lot of that grooming, my first year was preparing me for a career in the NFL. But being behind Terrell Owens was a horrible example of how to be a pro. Yeah. So that was another. I imagine. That was just another part of the pressure, where it's just like, what am I looking at? Like, is this really? Is he really calling the starting quarterback a homosexual? Oh yeah. In the media, is this guy really cussing out the offensive coordinator up and down the sideline? Is this guy really not practicing this week? Yeah. Oh, it was just like, whoa. Yeah. Like, is this guy really disrespecting treating teammates like they're like measly fans? Is this really happening? And this is what it means to be a professional athlete. And I was like, this was kind of it was matching up with a lot of the things that I had read,
Yeah.
about the tough times, with the Dallas Cowboys and, the White House era and Mike Tyson and, Agassi. It was like a lot of the microcosms of, the negative stereotypes of professional athletes all in one situation. And so it's like to deprogram myself from that also took a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that was like. I mean, I know that, T.O. has a pretty big reputation for having lots of interesting things happen on his teams. But to be behind him as a wide receiver, I'm sure that was kind of an experience that not many people know what it's like who are on other teams.
And then it was also this whole other aspect of it where the work ethic was just out of this world. Mm-hmm. And so I would have to pluck and create my own professional athlete. So, I was looking at Cedric Wilson. He had this wiggle where he could get off the line of scrimmage, and he played really low. He lowered his center of gravity, and he sunk his hips when he went in and out of cuts. I was like, oh, I'll use that.
Yeah.
Ty Streets had these shake moves at the top of his route to make the defender think he was going one way and he'd go the other. I'll take that. Terrell once got on me one time. He's like, man, just grab the guy and just throw him out the way. I'm 173 pounds.
Right.
My rookie year.
Yeah.
He's 225.
Yeah. Terrell Owens is a big guy. Yeah.
And I was like, look, I'm like, all right, I'm not going to say anything. I was like, sure.
Yeah.
Not happening. But the way he trained on the field, it was second to none. I couldn't believe my eyes. And then when he practiced, mm-hmm. He would work out with these workout bands on his waist and legs that restricted that was like resistance bands. And he'd go up against defenders with these resistance bands on.
Oh my gosh.
He would, he had personal trainer, and, his meal regimen was just spot on. And so I was like, oh, all right, like that's what it takes. So it's to kind of pluck that from his regimen in order to build myself as a player.
Yeah. So I guess it's really about when you're coming in as a rookie, picking and choosing which aspects of your game you want to mimic from other players. And obviously Terrell Owens, in terms of a player, I mean, incredible player. So if you could extract those really good elements of his skill set into your game, that's a probably a good thing to have. Now, when did you first feel really comfortable as a pro? Like you felt like, okay, I belong here. I know that, I can make this work.
In 2008, when I was in Chicago.
Okay.
My first 3 years, it was still really difficult to catch because it's so tight. The separation, I couldn't get as much separation.
Yeah.
And, the proverbial game slowing down hadn't quite happened yet. Mm-hmm. And I think that happens around year 5 or 6 is when I feel like the game slows down for a player. But so it was difficult being in the situations, and then the level of competition was just so high. And then the offensive coordination didn't really fit my style. So it wasn't until I got to Chicago with Kyle Orton. Mm-hmm. And that was like the first time I was with a quarterback who could throw all the throws, the deep ones that I was really good at, the short ones. He had really good accuracy. He liked to throw a ball a lot. And and I was back with Ron Turner. So I was doing a lot of the big top post, the double moves, the big comebacks that I was really good at, selling the go route and breaking out at 18 on the sideline, and Kyle could deliver those throws. And that's when I felt, I was kind of like, oh, all right. Like now I get it. My coordination was starting to match up with my athletic ability. And that's when I felt the most comfortable.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I mean, I think a big part of being successful as a pro athlete is probably connected a lot to also just being in the right situation, because there's, so many players that might fit one system but not fit another, and then their talent gets kind of wasted in one system, and so boom, they change teams and have a breakout year all of a sudden. It's always, there's so many factors at play, and you're always trying to find that right fit. You see that just in sports all the time.
Yeah, and then there's a code in
Yeah.
sports. So as a player, I just had to take it. I couldn't, in the news with Naomi Osaka talking about the mental health aspect of sports. That's the most difficult part of it. Is I'm aware of what's going on the team. I'm aware of the work ethics of the coaching staff also. And yet I had to answer questions to the media about my performance.
Right.
And why I'm not performing. And that's not the story.
Yeah, right.
And so that's why I had such an embattled relationship with the media.
Yeah.
It was because it was like, that's not the story.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
We're not going into these interviews talking about how I'm being double teamed as a second year, 4th round pick. Mm-hmm. Like I shouldn't be getting double teamed. And how come no one else is open? Like, where are the plays to get anybody else open?
Right.
And that was the mentally challenging part about playing in the NFL is the code. And once you talk about, I recall a play in San Francisco with, and this player was the 3rd or 4th string quarterback, and somehow he's in the game in San Francisco. Every year I played with like 4 quarterbacks, and we were running a slant and go. It was even more moves than that. It was a slant, fake post and go, and on the goal line. It was ridiculous. Yeah. And so I'm on the slant, fake post, and he throws the ball, and then as I'm breaking out to the out the back pylon, and then the question from the media were, well, why didn't you go get the ball? It's because you're not tough enough. Is it because you don't want to go over the middle? Is it, and it's these questions. Jeez. And I said, no, the ball was thrown too soon. I had another move to go. And that was the headline. Brandon throws the quarterback under the bus.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's an unfortunate thing I've seen a lot too, is just because they want to oversimplify every situation, because at the end of the day, a lot of it's about selling headlines and keeping people interested in reading, and probably talking about the complexities of team sports and why, it's you're not necessarily get the performances out of certain players as you will due to, whatever reason. That's not as interesting as just, having some blanket statement about, okay, why something's happening. It seems like, and I think that's also kind of a problem sometimes with some fans too, who are, very vocal and critical of players, just because they want to simplify it. And, when these people, everyone's just human beings playing, playing the game, it's not, there's a lot more to it than just like, oh, this person's just not very good or whatever. There's a lot of factors there. So.
That's right.
Yeah, that makes sense. But so in 2010 though, that's when you really exploded onto the scene, because you had a humongous year. I mean, it was incredible. Talk about what that was like.
Yeah, the 2008 Bears season, I tore my PCL.
Okay.
And I was pretty much written off, especially coming off of my time with the Washington football team and not getting along with the media and Joe Gibbs there. attempted to blackball me from the NFL. And then Ron Turner actually vouched for me with Lovie Smith and the Chicago Bears organization to give me another shot. I come back, doing a decent job of getting along with people, and I tore my knee. And so I actually thought I was done. I was, gonna pick up at the Big Ten Network, finish my undergraduate, pick up at the Big Ten Network and start my journalism career. And I got a call from Kyle Orton. He's like, "Hey, I'm out in Denver. I told Josh McDaniels about you. You think you'd be interested in coming out for a workout?" And I said I would. He's like, "All right, I'll see what I see." He asked me what kind of shape I'm in. I was in this weird shape because I was still living in Lake Forest, Illinois. So I was Olympic lifting with my dentist. He's a amateur triathlete.
Okay.
This big Russian Jewish man, big old trunk, big old legs, and but just awesome, gloriously huge man. And his weight trainer. I was playing basketball with DJ Skip, with the hip hop community on the south side of Chicago in the rec center on Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah.
After my leg day with Yuri, my dentist.
Yeah.
And then I was rock climbing with these restaurant owners in my neighborhood in Lake Forest on Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday.
Sounds like kind of the conditioning routine of like Rocky or something from the movies. This random stuff. Yeah.
Oh, it was just so random. And it's, and that rock climbing was like rock climbing and eating a charcuterie plate and drinking wine at the same time. Picture that. And Kyle was like, "What kind of shape you in?" I'm like, "Man, I'm in decent shape."
Yeah. Yeah. Define conditioning.
So I actually came out to Denver and lit up the workout.
Awesome. Okay. So it worked.
It was bizarre. It was really bizarre. I got out there and it was just like, woo. And Josh McDaniels was kind of like, we weren't expecting to see that. And they were trying to sign me, and they're like, and my agent's like, "No, you got to get out of there."
Yeah. Let's negotiate.
And we'll do the negotiations. Yeah. And so that's how I ended up in Denver in 2009. But then it was they had Brandon Marshall, Stokely, Jabbar Gaffney, and a fan favorite Eddie Royal all ahead of me.
Yeah.
So I was coming in as a safety valve, insurance policy,
right?
In the event that one of them gets injured. People always get injured in the NFL, right?
Yes. Yeah.
They didn't.
Wow. Yeah, that's unlucky.
All four remained remarkably healthy the entire year. And it wasn't till the end of the year when 3 of the players faked injuries.
What?
Yeah, because they didn't want to ruin their chances for next season because we were such a bad team. That was the year the Broncos started off like 6 or 7-0.
Okay. Yeah.
Beat the Patriots. You remember that year? And Josh was like running around the stadium.
Right. Yeah.
It was the year they wore those ugly yellow uniforms and the brown and yellow uniforms. And 3 of the wide receivers faked injuries because they didn't want to ruin their prospects for next year. Going to get new contracts and so one of the players said to me, he's like, I was like, "Oh man," it's like that just kind of goes against what it's like to be an NFL player. He's like, "Man, what are you talking about? You should thank me. You're going to play."
Mm-hmm.
And I told that particular player, I was like, "But the problem is like I'm not going to come out. If I go in, I ain't coming out." And sure enough, I went to those last 2 games and like lit it up, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And the team traded away Marshall.
Yeah.
They made a few roster adjustments, and then I was a starting wide receiver going into 2010.
Wow.
And Josh told me going into that season, he was like, "Do you remember I ran your pro day?" And I was like, no. He's like, yeah, I ran your pro day at the University of Illinois. And he's like, Bill just wouldn't sign you. He's like, I was trying to get you drafted to the Patriots and he wouldn't sign you. He said, so if you can play anywhere remotely close to the way you were playing in that pro day, you'll be all pro in this offense.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, that was like 9 years ago, 8 years ago or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Saying that in my mind, but to him, I said, you got it. He's like, I said, I won't let you down.
Wow. Yeah. And then you just kind of exploded on from there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was ridiculous. Yeah. It was, it was like finally playing the cerebral football game that I always wanted to play.
Yeah.
The game was slow. I knew a lot about the X's and O's. I could, look up and read the coverages pre-snap, which was necessary in Josh McDaniel's offense, that the quarterback and the receivers are all seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I was back with Kyle Orton, who liked throwing me the ball.
Yep.
Who could throw deep balls, and we could do big top play actions and go huge down the field. And he liked throwing it. He wasn't afraid to throw it and throw interceptions. And yeah, it was the perfect time where, my effort, and opportunity meet.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I've always been an effort person, diving for the ball, going up with one hand, I'd do anything to catch the ball. I'd rather dive and catch the ball and fall down than to not catch the ball at all.
Right.
And so it's like to be able to finally put that on display and become the player that, everybody knew I could be. It was humbling experience. It was like, yes, it's like all the neat things that, I'd studied as a child about being a professional athlete. To be able to do all those moves and have like the skill to do all the moves that I wanted to do, to have a coach that believed in my talent, who needed those yards out of me in order for us to like have any chance of winning, and a quarterback who believed in me. It was just like, it was a humbling experience. And then the other component was that the Denver market, the fan base is non-intrusive.
Okay.
The media gave me space and allowed me to be myself. I could talk to the media or I could not talk to the media. It wasn't ordeal. They weren't making big deals out of any of the antics that happened on the field or any rumors that were circulating around the team. It was just a sports-oriented franchise, and I could just focus on playing sports. That was until Tim Tebow.
Okay. Yeah. Tim coming on the scene was an interesting experience.
And I was just like super frustrating.
Yeah. I mean that. I remember that Broncos team pretty well, because I remember you had a huge season, and I was excited about that because that was also around the time I had already I'd met you a little bit at a game and stuff. I was like, oh wow, Brandon Lloyd is great and stuff. And I think I also met Tim Tebow, actually. That might have been that same time or whatever. And I mean, Tim, from the outside perspective, Tim seems like a super nice guy, but definitely he seemed to struggle with adjusting to the NFL game.
Yeah. There's a lot. He was unable to pick up from a cerebral aspect of the game, and then physical limitations, just mechanics and height, and
I remember
overall intangibles about being a NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
With the film room, and then the intelligence on the field, and then to be able to physically perform it, you have to be really sharp.
Yeah. I mean, it was really strange for the team that he was in the playoffs with. Were you on that team, the Broncos team that went to playoffs, or you had left that year?
Yeah, I was in St. Louis. That was at 2011, 2012.
Yeah, I guess it was like
2011.
Yeah.
I was in St. Louis that year.
Yeah, because that was one of the strangest teams I've ever seen in my entire life. But yeah, like I think they beat the Steelers in the playoffs, and like Tebow threw, I don't know, he didn't complete very many passes, but he completed like all the passes he completed were touchdowns that were just bombs to some wide receiver. I think it was like I can't remember who the receiver was, like
Thomas.
Thomas, yeah, Demaryius Thomas,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. It was just so wild to watch, but yeah, never know what's going to happen in the NFL, I guess. So, and then so you ended up going to a few different teams, and you also played with Tom Brady for a little while. What was that like?
Oh, yes. So the 2011 season, Josh McDaniels got fired for, recording teams in the European game, the international game in London.
Yeah.
He got picked up in St. Louis. And that was when Elway took over the team, and I ended up requesting a trade, and was fortunate enough to be able to get to St. Louis to continue to run the offense. And 730 yards or something ridiculous in 11 games, and it was really fun to be back in Missouri and play, especially not in Kansas City, where I feel like there'd have been a lot of distraction, but to play in St. Louis, almost, full circle, where Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce set me down in that lunchroom, and to be able to continue my career and be, playing at that Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt level, I was a badge of honor. I felt really legit to be able to do that in that uniform. In St. Louis, like Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce. Steve Spagnuolo was a fantastic man. He was the head coach at the time. And then to bump into Steven Jackson, who was an all-time favorite teammate, all-time, great. Everything, checked all the boxes. Highest paid, best work ethic, first in, last out, worked out extra hard, super fly, all his clothes are tailored. The dude's like legit, full circle. It's like, all right, bro. This is a great, fantastic teammate and friend. And so I was able to finish out the Denver contract and become a free agent, and was able to follow Josh to New England.
Okay.
And play with Tom.
Yeah.
So, Tom was that same thing. Steven Jackson.
Yeah.
Highest paid, hardest work. First in, last out. Like everything, just legit Tom, and hella fly. The flyest man on earth. I mean, everything is fly.
Yeah.
And that was what was really neat about Tom. It was like, come in the locker room. He like, give me a hug in the morning. What's up, B. Lloyd? How was your night last night? What'd you do? It's like, oh, I watched Netflix. Oh, word. Like, all right, cool. It's like this real like one-on-one connection.
Yeah.
And then get on the football field, and he hits the switch, motherfucker. And it's just like, whoa. It's like the intensity just turns on. It's like, oh yeah. Now this is fun. It was really exciting to play with him, to like go to like have those two sides. I like that. Like that was something that I really admired about him, is to be able to get on the field and just be strictly business. Get into the film room, strictly business, and then go off the field and be like, what's up, B. Lloyd? You want to come over and watch Monday Night Football with me and G tonight?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. Wow.
Yeah. I guess he's just an absolute amazing friend. And just admirable to watch. It's like there's certain players in sports who I define as playing the game for other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, most of us are out there, to make some money.
Yeah.
Some of us out there because we can. Some of us out here because luck.
Yeah.
And then there's players out there that are just not doing it for the same reasons. And those are those Hall of Famers where it's just like, whoa, like the stats, the playing against the greats, where like this game that is playing in front of us, this is not the real game. It's the Joe Montana game.
Yeah.
It's then the Tom Brady game that he's trying to stretch these stats out. So it's going to take so long for another player to reach these stats. It's admirable to look at. It's an honor to be a part of and to play with that. And one of the things I'll say about Tom was, Tom would say, in this red zone situation, 7 years ago, this defensive coordinator ran this coverage against me. So I want you to, when I give you a head nod, I want you to run a fade. Now, if I look at you and stare, that means nothing. But if I put my left foot back, I want you to do a one-step slant.
Wow.
So he had this backyard game going underneath the offense with all the pass catchers.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it took the game to another level of being able to get open and make plays and be there when he called my number. I was always like, I was saying to myself, like, I got to get so wide open because I don't know if he's going to call my number. I don't know when he does. And when he does, I need to make sure I'm ready. Yeah. So it's like that intensity every play. It was really fun. It was really fun. And then playing in the Boston market and playing and it was like, it was primo. It was fun. The professional athlete treatment there. It's like what you talk about. It's like being a Yankee or being being a Laker.
Yeah,
it's like being a Patriot. It's like you go place. It's like I remember I was in Boston and I was just floating around by myself because it was just a dream come true to get to the city. I'd never been in the New England area, so I just wanted to explore the town. So I was just floating around. I was buying tickets to concerts. I love going to music venues. I was buying tickets to the House of Blues in Boston. I was just doing it online. And I kind of stand in will call. I'd be dressed incognito and be standing in will call. And I checked into this to the Weekend concert. And the guy's like, he looked at my name. He's like, all right. He's like, come in here and then stand over here in the corner over here. So just inside the door. He's like, wait here. The general manager of the House of Blues comes down and he goes, Brandon Lloyd, here's my number. Don't ever buy tickets and stand in will call ever again here. Like took me backstage and it was like, it's like, dude.
Wow.
So it was just really neat. The chefs, the culinary experience was already top notch in Boston, but then, being a player, it's just like the chefs come out and greet and the whole experience. It makes you really want to play hard for that city and that fan base.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's you were right there at the time where the Patriots were dominating for years, and to be a Patriot obviously was probably like the biggest thing you could be in the NFL. So that's a cool experience. I mean, it sounds like you've had actually an incredible amount of interesting experiences in meeting different players and playing with different people. I mean, that's like a treasure trove of just stories I bet you had with all the people that you met, which is really cool. And of course, having such a great career yourself. So when did you decide that it was time to retire and move on?
Being in the locker room with Aaron Hernandez in New England, that was a traumatic experience.
Yeah, sure. I bet.
I took a year off after that.
Yeah.
I'd hit my goal. I always said I wanted to play 10 years in the NFL, be vested. I feel like if I could got to 10 years, then I, would have had an opportunity at a Super Bowl, which I did. I went to New England strictly for that. Like you said, that's where you go to get a Super Bowl.
Right.
So like that was my effort. I got to Chicago the year after they went, to the Super Bowl. So I was like thinking I was doing my best to get on Super Bowl teams.
Yeah.
And that experience in New England, that was traumatic.
Yeah.
I took a year off. I had already been working in aerospace sales in the off season since I got to Denver.
Yeah.
So I'd already been thinking about and planning for post career, and I knew I wanted to get in business. I wasn't going to remain in hip hop and music, but I wanted to be more in the corporate space. So a close friend of mine had brought me in 2010 with the proposition. He says, come work for me in the off seasons. I'll give you a leave of absence to play in the NFL.
Okay.
And so I was able to manage, his sexiest accounts. He actually gave me the Boeing account. He gave me the SpaceX account. He gave me the subcontractors for the F-35 project. I got to do the international travel with the Japanese steel mill.
Mm-hmm.
I was part of a project where we were rolling steel in Japan. So I got to have that whole experience in the off seasons. And that was my introduction into the business world. And so I went back to that full time in that 2013 year.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to put some distance between myself and the NFL. I thought that it would be, I hit my goal. I hit my professional goal. I tried as hard as I could to get a championship, and I was actually ready to return to normalcy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or deprogramming myself to get back to some sense of normalcy.
Sure.
And everything was fine. It was a tough adjustment. It was a profound loss. It's horrible to lose that identity that I had since the third grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a call from my music manager. He says, I ran into the general manager of the 49ers at a cocktail party last weekend. I'm sorry, man. I need to apologize. I was like, dude, why? What are you talking about? He's like, well, I told them that they're missing you. They need you back. I was like, I'm fine doing what I'm doing. He's like, no, man. He's like, you need to come back. And so I called the general manager. He asked me, what kind of shape are you in?
Okay. That's right. Here we go again.
I said, well, I got a country club membership. I'm playing tennis.
I rock climb sometimes.
No, I'm playing tennis. I'm a 3.5 plus. So I'm playing in the tennis league indoors. I golf weekly.
Yeah.
And so Jim Harbaugh actually gives me a call, and he gives me, he's a hell of a recruiter. I don't know if you've heard the stories.
Yeah. From what I've heard, it's pretty impressive.
Oh man, it was impressive.
Yeah.
It was impressive. The way he really talked up that organization, talked up, he's like, we're the New England of the New England Patriots of the NFC West, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the organization, the new stadium, the pep talk, come back, finish where you started, it'll help you in your business career, being aligned with champions. We're going back to the Super Bowl, we're going to win it. It was really solid. So it was again, I was like, all right, I can come back and make a run at the Super Bowl. And that was just far from the case. He got on the team, and the team was imploding around Colin Kaepernick and the expiring contracts. So a lot of these players who had got that pep talk 4 years ago and experienced that success were now all at the table, ready for their contracts. And he, the organization made a mistake and gave the money to Colin Kaepernick. And that was, it unsettled the locker room. And Harbaugh left and for a $50 million contract to go to Michigan, and kind of left that team in disarray.
Right. Sure. And so
after that year, it was like, all right, I'm good on that. I was like, I tried, I tried, and, and I didn't mind, coming back and being in a role where I could mentor players.
Sure.
That happened to me. My second year, they brought in Curtis Conway to mentor me. Profound experience. It's like, an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And how these pros talk about what it's like to be a pro. It's like these reinforcing elements of being a professional athlete was like solid. My third year, they brought in Johnny Morton. Same thing. Taught me how to break down the game. Every game you need to consider, think about, you want to get, 50 to 70 yards a game. This is how you need to break down these games. And, each catch you make a spectacular catch, it's $1 million right there. So it's kind of like, I was like, all right. So it's like, he really helped me like compartmentalize the game and then start performing. And so I didn't mind being in that role, because I had that role when I went to St. Louis, and, and Amendola was injured. I wish I would have got a chance to mentor him, but he was around a lot, and he was like always talking to me. He was always, even though he's injured, he was always like around me. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed having someone like that, because that's the way I was. I was around Terrell Owens, and he would be like, get the hell away from me. I was around him so much because I was just trying to pick up anything.
Right.
Even if I just want to hear a side conversation of how Ty Streets was getting open. Dude, they would be like, get away. I was the annoying little brother. But these old school cats wouldn't talk to me.
Yeah.
And so that was one thing I learned when I got older. I talked to the younger players. So even in Denver, and they brought in Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker. If I couldn't, they weren't going to listen to me, because it was different personalities. They weren't that type of player.
Right.
But they were going to watch me. So I made sure I was doing those work ethic pieces that I picked up from Owens and Cedric Wilson. I was applying them in Denver. So if they didn't hear me talk, they knew what to do. They knew what it took to be a baller. And so I love those roles. And in New England, it was neat to be that for Julian Edelman. It's like, here's what it's like to be a baller. Like, this is how to, obviously he was in his own right. But I know I dropped some jewels for him to pick up and build his career off of, pluck from me, pluck from players. And so I didn't mind doing that. But the toughest part was it wasn't worth the money anymore. It's too dangerous to play in the NFL for less than $1 million.
Yeah.
It's too dangerous. It's like, it's too dangerous. It was too dangerous for me to play for less than $3 million. It's not worth it.
Yeah. With all the injuries that happen, I mean, it's, they can ruin your life if you're not careful. So I totally understand that. It's scary. I mean, like, I was never a big guy, so I never played football. I played a lot of soccer. I played some hockey and baseball and basketball. But from a young age, I always kind of felt like I'm not sure if I want to play football, since it was just I was always saw people I was friends with. A lot of people played and did see them get injured, and some really bad stuff. It's like, wow, I don't know if I want to do that. So.
Yeah, it was, and it's that. And then, obviously that code of, going on another team and then pretending like there's a receiver competition. Yeah. That was like really old. when there really wasn't. They're just wanting to play younger players. And it's like the business model just is not conducive for veteran players.
Yeah.
There's too many new players coming in, cheap players.
Yeah.
And
sure.
And so they can cycle through those guys versus a guaranteed contract. For me, as a 10-year plus guy, it doesn't make sense to have a guy that is guaranteed $1 million off the salary, taking $1 million from the salary cap, when you can have 3 or 4 players, in different positions, and you can cut and release them and bring them back and forth and fill holes where it's needed throughout the year. So those are a couple of the factors. The other factors were there's just not that many winning teams.
Mm-hmm.
There's I didn't want to play for the sake of playing. I was only playing to be on winning teams.
Right. Yeah.
And it was like, that was the whole point. And I would have considered New Orleans or Green Bay, but those just weren't programs. Those programs weren't seeking out my services.
Mm-hmm.
Try to get with Breeze or try to get with Rodgers. I mean, that would be like the last 2 great quarterbacks that were around. Not that there weren't other great quarterbacks.
Right.
The last 2 older great quarterbacks that could use older talent, because the younger guys, they were grooming their own sets of receivers. Russell Wilson and those type players. But yeah, those are the factors that factored in. So when people ask me why I left the NFL, I just say old age.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, because as you've mentioned several times, there's so much of your health is on the line playing. If you're not a young player trying to get established, if you're going to risk, your health, you want to risk it for a team that has a chance at winning the Super Bowl. So that's obviously a big part of it. That's cool, though, that you also mentioned about how you really try to help those younger guys any way you can, because giving back to other people's careers you can make a huge impact on people doing that. So that's really great. What advice do you have to sort of young athletes of really any sport that are considering a professional career?
Study what makes a professional athlete. Study the current events that are happening with professional athletes. That was my blueprint. Mm-hmm. So that, for example, I read in Sports Illustrated in the 90s after, the Cowboys three-peat or whatever, Super Bowl championships, that Emmitt Smith had trouble going to the public spaces, to the movies. So he had to bring a movie theater into his house in Dallas, and his life was miserable because of that.
Yeah.
So those were some of the components where I maintained a lower profile as a professional athlete, and so that I could blend in to certain to normal life. I wanted to maintain a normal life. And so it's study up on current events, the history, mainly off the court, field, out of the pool, whatever, off the mat, whatever sport mm-hmm. it is. Make sure going professional sports is your plan B. So your plan A should be to utilize your talent to get a scholarship, means to an end.
Yeah.
If you're fortunate enough or blessed enough to have the time and the space and the privilege to go to college, make the most of it.
Sure.
Network at an early age. So you need to get a mentor. You need to be giving back your time, speaking to young people, engaging in young people's affairs, and sharpening the tool of how to communicate life experience, because people are looking up to you. find a mentor, an advisor, because what happens when you're with your mentors is you eventually grow out of them. They'll coach you so well. These mentors will mentor you so well that you outgrow them. And then you have to have someone else. So it's like you have to always be seeking more guidance, more advisors. I admire former President Barack Obama. Even as president, he still had advisors.
Well, yeah, right.
There's like still more. It's like you're never at the top where you don't need any advisor,
right?
or any mentor. Like there's always someone with more, or there's always a sector of knowledge that you don't have, and so therefore you need someone who has that experience.
Yeah.
So those are a few things, and then obviously, just be smooth about it. In the event that it happens and you become a professional, be smooth about it. Just do your best to be nice as much as you can, because the ego is a real thing and it's necessary in order to compete at those high stakes with that pressure. You need to have a healthy ego and a healthy level of narcissism and egotism,
right,
in order to compete on those stages. But then just always be mindful of it and be working your best to have a healthy balance where you can turn it off, like Tom Brady.
Right. Yeah. Know when to use it and when not to. Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
Turn it off.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I appreciate you for taking the time to come on. It's been super awesome talking with you. And, when I was thinking about bringing you on, I thought that you'd be sort of this perfect person to talk about, all the aspects of becoming a pro, and from seeing interviews with you in the past. I just thought you have a great perspective to share. What's the best way for people to follow you and keep track of what you're doing?
Yeah, you can follow me at Mr. B. Lloyd on Twitter. You can keep up with me at careerwisecolorado.org with our mission to bridge the gap between education and career. At CareerWise, we're the intermediary between employers and the U.S. Department of Labor. We're bringing on white-collar jobs to high school students.
Oh, okay.
And we're working with some of the largest enterprise companies. Here in Colorado, Pinnacle Assurance is bringing on 30 apprentices, maintaining that number every year, giving students that network, that business network that is important for students who don't have that luxury of seeing 4-year higher education in their future, but can get to work right away and start building equally as important skills in the workforce. But we're working with 120 companies locally, and you can keep up with me on that on LinkedIn also.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's good.
Awesome.
That's it.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I look forward to sharing those links with everyone, and people keep track. That's fantastic that you continue to give back and help everyone and mentor people. So thank you again for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Ben.